So, funny story about this story sharing episode. I only just started writing this story about maybe a week ago. So here's the story. Well, here's the story leading up to the story. My buddy Jay, who draws a lot of art for me, he has an Instagram, and quite often he will upload art to his Instagram, and he'll sometimes say, I didn't do this as a commission, I didn't do this as a request. It just was an idea that kind of came up on its own. Does anyone want to help me create a story for? And what I like to do is when these images come up, of course, I come up with a story for them, but I sometimes read through the comments to see if anyone else comes up with anything. And most come up with okay ideas or, ideas that are all right. Others just say, picture looks good, typical stuff. But in my case, I was like, man, I feel like there's a great story behind this. And I actually really broke down. I wrote down a whole outline for how I wanted the plot to run. So I told Jay about it, and Jay said, wow, that actually sounds really good. And I said, do you want me to write it? He said, yeah, write it out. So I wrote the first chapter. And after writing the first chapter, I really, really like how it's coming out. The story, I call it Storms on the Horizon or Storms of Fate. I'm still working out which title I like better. I'm leaning on Storms of Fate, but we'll see which one I go with. Now, the story follows the main character named Rachel, and she is living in a post-apocalyptic world. Now, the rules of this post-apocalyptic world, I didn't want to just do zombie apocalypse. I didn't want to just do nuclear annihilation apocalypse. I didn't want to just do Monsters Among Us apocalypse. I wanted to do all of those, so I kind of merged it. Here's what happens. In the year 2184, quite a ways off, the world has become a dystopian, frightening post-apocalyptic world as a result of these strange storms that began showing up that people just refer to as the storms or the clouds. They don't really know what they are. They're a strange blue fog. When the fog rolls in, it's like a portal to another world, another dimension. Where it goes, reality itself is warped. The whole lands that it touches may alter. Buildings may flip upside down. Bodies that were dead may get up and start walking around like zombies, and even humans may mutate or change or suffer odd changes in them. These storms terrify everyone. And so people began fearing what should we do? How do we deal with these? They just keep showing up. So what happened was humanity developed something called the storm sensor, which is this machine that can detect where a storm is coming. And they put these machines in large populated cities so that when storms came within about 100-mile or 10-mile radius, somewhere within that range, they would go off warning the people, hey, storm's coming, get to shelter. Now, where can you hide from a storm? Usually the best way to do it is to get underground, and only a handful of cities, usually very large metropolises, have subway stations. So what happened was only the really big, bustling metropolis cities with subways and catacombs really prospered because they could convert their subway stations into underground bunkers for when storms came by. Now, basically what's happened is everything outside of these cities have become what's known as the Deadlands because only the dead live there and the monsters that are left behind by the storms. Sometimes the storms will transform animals into horrible, nightmarish monsters. Sometimes they'll leave behind brand new monsters that the world has never heard of before. But sometimes they'll leave behind treasures, strange artifacts, or jewels or gemstones from whatever universe the storms are connected to. No one quite knows how they work, and everyone's too scared to go near them because if you get caught in one of these storms, if you're really lucky, nothing will happen to you. You'll walk out unscathed. Or you might get mutilated by whatever monsters are hiding in it. You might get torn to pieces by zombies, undead people that are just brought back to life by the storm's power. Or you may disappear entirely. You may just vanish without a trace. No one knows where you go. It's a horrible, horrible thing to live with. And people have become paranoid and scared. The only military that exists now is known as the Ranger Corps. These are specialist soldiers who are tasked to leave the cities into the Deadlands and find survivors and innocent people every time a storm passes through and try to get them to a city or get them help if they can, kill any zombies they see, collect any treasures they find, and kill any monsters that they come across. It is a very high-paying job. Those who are Rangers get paid very well for what they do. But it is also an incredibly dangerous job because you run the risk of being caught up in a storm with no shelter and no place to hide, and you're exposing yourself to the monsters and creatures that the storm leaves behind. It's a very risky job. Now, Rachel is unique. When she was a small child, she was suffering from leukemia. Her father was scared that she would die from the leukemia. And one day when a storm is rolling into their town, he knows that there's very little he can do with her. So he does try to get her to shelter, but she's just too weak and he thinks she's going to die. So he decides that he's going to duck down, cover up, and just say, you know what? If we die, we die. I can't get you to shelter, and maybe this will be better for you. We're just going to stay here, and if we die, we do. Well, when the storm passes, he was very fortunate not to have been touched. Rachel, though, was. And how was she touched? The storm took away her leukemia. She's cured. She has no cancer anymore. It's a miracle. However, it did leave her with one slight defect. Her lungs don't work properly anymore. She has a lung condition, and every 5 or 6 hours she has to take a puff of pure oxygen to keep herself functioning properly, but that's a small price to pay for being free of cancer. So her father is blown away by this, and so in thanks for this, he decides he's going to become a ranger and help people learn more about the storms and save other people, because maybe there is hope in this messed up world. His brother, Philip, wants to join up too, and so they join the Rangers, and when Rachel gets old enough, she joins the Rangers. It's a family business now. But then during one mission, Philip and Rachel's father get caught in a storm. Philip gets out with his face scarred up and messed up, and Rachel's father's never seen again. He vanished. This traumatized Rachel, but that didn't make her stop wanting to be a ranger, because deep down, even though she knows it's impossible, she's hoping she'll find the storm that took her father away and maybe find a way to get him back. She knows it's foolish, and she knows it's incredibly risky, but a part of her still wants that. Now the story, that's all the setup. The story, though, is a little different. What's been happening is strange things are happening within her city. I haven't decided if it's Chicago or New York or what have you. I haven't decided that yet. But whatever the case, they haven't. Things have gotten really weird. Zombies and monsters, which were usually outside of the city, have now suddenly started to get in. Someone's been letting them in. That's the only explanation. So who's doing it? No one's quite sure. Rachel has suspicions about a terrorist organization that wants to do away with the city because they think that the city officials know secrets about these storms and aren't telling anyone. And so she wants to expose them. She wants to the terrorist organizations want to expose the city. She wants to find out who's behind this group and stop them. And to help her out, she has a few contacts. There's Webb, who's this girl who was affected by the storms, mutated her to be a little bit more spider-like. But she now goes by the name Webb, not only because she's more spider-like, but because she has a lot of informants. See, a lot of people who get mutated into monstrous forms or into horrifying forms or in strange ways, they hide out in the darker parts of the catacombs and underground where most people will leave them alone. But through her network of information, she is a valuable source of intel for Rachel, and the two are pretty close. And then there's another character named Rose that I haven't really come up with how she fits in yet. I've got a few ideas. Like, I'm thinking about making her maybe a leader of a rival Ranger Corps squad that Rachel butts head with. Or maybe she's a veteran that Rachel builds a connection with. Or heck, maybe she's part of the terrorist group. I haven't really decided what I want to do with her yet, but there's just so many ideas and possibilities. As I walk through this and kind of build on it, I hope that Jay will okay me to keep writing it, because I'm having fun with it. And maybe if things go well, I'll share with you guys some of what I have. The first chapter is already up on my DeviantArt page. If y'all are interested to read it, it was a lot of fun to write. And I hope you guys enjoyed the story sharing episode. And until my next video, I will see you, well, in the next video. Take care.